Welcome back to the Heartland Huddle. This is Chiefs, Lions, and NFL Talk. You can like and subscribe, please, to our podcast. My co-host and I, we come on here weekly. You can certainly go to our YouTube channel, Heartland Football, NFL Debates and Insights, or you can search us on YouTube at Heartland NFL Talk. Once again, please like and subscribe. Now, if you've been with us all season, in postseason here, you know that it's been a while since I've come on here to give a little just a reaction. And of course, you know what we're talking about. We are talking about the Super Bowl. And the tough part about the Super Bowl is, of course, is that I have Chiefs fandom. I'm a huge Chiefs fan, as we all know. But I'll be the first to admit, and you have to give credit where credit's due, we got our butts kicked. Flat out, period. The Kansas City Chiefs got their butts kicked by the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a 40-22 ball game, a ball game that never really felt that close. The Chiefs with a couple of garbage time touchdowns, one there to Xavier Worthy sort of to end the game, a 67-yard dot of a throw that Patrick Mahomes made, I think to kind of remind the NFL world who exactly he is. Nonetheless, though, 40-22, Philadelphia Eagles, they absolutely handed it to us. And it was a dominant fashion from start to finish. All three phases of the game, offense, defense, special teams. And the main takeaway was, and I think watching the game, was, of course, their defense against our offensive line. 52% pressure rate. We all know the stats while only rushing 4 defensive linemen. They didn't have to blitz. They didn't have to send extra people to come after Mahomes. Their defensive line just flat out got it. 8 sacks on the night. I believe 6 or 8 sacks, I believe. Now, we all know over the second half of the season, of course, we had Kingsley Suamate-Ia that, of course, I was really high on coming into training camp in the preseason. He ended up not working out. Still hope. He's going to be a second-year guy. Still hope for him, but he wasn't the answer at left tackle. Insert Wanya Morris, a second-year guy. He wasn't the answer. Got beat like a drum trying to protect Patrick Mahomes' blind side. So then insert free agent DJ Humphries, who then gets hurt and, of course, has to exit and miss the rest of the season and the playoffs there. And so then we slide over our all-pro left guard Joe Thuney, who filled in admirably. I think we can all agree, of course, that Joe Thuney sliding over solidified some things offensively for us. We had some of our best offensive performances over the second half of the year. However, in sliding over your first-team all-pro left guard, you're sacrificing or compromising the interior of that offensive line. And, of course, that's where we got exposed during the Super Bowl. And so hats off to the Philadelphia Eagles. Look, this podcast was supposed to be a fun endeavor, something my co-hosts and I enjoy doing week to week because of our fandoms for the Chiefs and the Lions, of course. However, my co-hosts and I, we also do owe our subscribers and our listeners and our followers objectivity. We owe you guys the truth, and we also just owe you guys respect in admitting, saying, hey, we got our butts beat, and there's no way around it. Now, specifically, like we said, that Eagles defense, the defensive line rushing 4, dropping 7 against the Chiefs offensive line, and Patrick Mahomes. However, people often ask, well, Eric, how come the Chiefs just didn't bring somebody in to help block that defensive line and that fearsome pass rush? Well, folks, I have a good buddy who's an offensive coordinator for a collegiate program back in Kansas. And he described it to me one way, pretty simplistically. He said, Eric, football is a game of numbers. When you have a light box, you run the ball. When, of course, you have a heavy box, you throw the ball. Well, the Chiefs did neither. And it was one of those things, if you think about it, if you bring a 6th man, you have 5 down linemen blocking 4 defensive linemen. You'd think you'd have the advantage. If you bring in a 6th guy to help block the 4, you're essentially leaving then 3 wide receivers on 7 defensive backs. Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, loved that matchup and that advantage that his defense had. How is a guy like a rookie like Xavier Worthy, an older, aging Juju Smith-Schuster, a no-show Travis Kelce, I'll get to him in a bit. How are those guys supposed to win against 7 defensive backs? I also felt, too, offensively that we need to evolve, right? And that's on Andy Reid. That's on Matt Nagy. Personally, I don't care if Matt Nagy comes back in an offensive coordinator role. I really don't. I know he's a third down and red zone type of coach specialty. He helps Andy Reid scheme there. I think over the past few years we've struggled in the red zone. Maybe it's not having enough targets once we get down there, or even not running the ball enough with Pacheco, Hunt, things like that in the red zone. However, I don't care if he comes back. I think you saw Andy Reid over the last 2 years because of the lack of downfield threat. A lot of pick routes, a lot of rub routes, a lot of things to spring a wide receiver free and let them go get yards after the catch. We saw it all last year in Rashee Rice's rookie year. Came up big in the Super Bowl. We saw it a little bit to begin this year with Xavier Worthy before he got more comfortable and started being that downfield threat we drafted him to be. But it's one of those things, I think if you're Vic Fangio, you're sitting here saying, okay, Isaiah Pacheco doesn't scare me. Kareem Hunt is a hefty third down, fourth down back. And all of that's great, but none of it terrifies me, especially when I have the defensive personnel that I do. So I've got to eliminate that running game, which, of course, the Eagles did by a large margin. And then I just have to play sound coverage on the back end, right? And like I said, you've got 3 wide receivers and an aging tight end against 7 defensive backs. Speaking of that rushing, the Chiefs, of course, I think I'm looking it up here. The Chiefs, I believe, had 49 rushing yards, 11 carries for 49 rushing yards. Now, they played the large majority of the game, of course, from behind. It got to be 24-0 or 24-3 or whatever it was really, really quickly. And so Pat Mahomes and the crew had to start throwing the football. You saw the Chiefs try to, of course, go to start the third quarter down by a lot to try to get the running game going a little bit. But once again, the Eagles' defensive line and linebackers was just too much for our offensive line. And so now, of course, you have the crux of the situation. The lack of evolution. I thought coming out of halftime, Andy Reid and Matt Nagy would have some answers. There were none. There weren't any answers. And you can blame that on a lot of different variables. However, there just wasn't. It wasn't a typically coached Andy Reid game. Maybe when your offensive line is getting beat that badly, maybe there is no answer. Maybe your team's got to pull out of it and just play harder. I don't know. However, it just seems like we need to evolve a little bit this offseason. And I don't know that we have to drastically change personnel, but I just think that we have to evolve some of that. I think Patrick Mahomes has got to get better in the pocket, and I think we've got to switch it up there. Now, moving kind of right along, keep it on the Chiefs' theme of offense in the Super Bowl here, which was abysmal. Patrick Mahomes. Listen, if you've been following us for any time, you know I love Patrick Mahomes. He's a native Texan, went to Texas Tech. I can forgive him for that, but plays for the Kansas City Chiefs and has brought unprecedented success to a small Midwestern football market. And so for that, I love him. However, I get he was running for his life. I get the offensive line was shaky the whole game. I get that he was sort of seeing ghosts out there. Maybe he was pressing. I don't know. Maybe he was pressing on the three-peat, on the chance of history, on the opportunity to do something Tom Brady, whom he's publicly said he's chasing, has never done, and that would be the three-peat, 3 consecutive Super Bowls, of course. But for the first time in 5 years, that's the worst football game I've seen Patrick Mahomes play in 5 years. Irregardless of whatever else was going on, bad play calling, lack of a run game, poor offensive line, his decision-making, his processing skills, his footwork, his throwing motion, his mechanics, all of it lended itself to one of the worst games he's ever had, particularly in the playoffs or Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, of course, 21 of 32, 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 of those in garbage time, with 2 interceptions. Those 2 interceptions coming on almost back-to-back possessions. One of those interceptions to a rookie, Cooper DeJean, for a pick 6. You're directly giving up points, of course, and playing from behind. And so when I watched it, that first interception to Cooper DeJean, when I watched it, I thought, man, what the heck? Where are you going with that? Juju was covered up on the play. I forget. I think it was Juju, Smith-Schuster, or Xavier Worthy. They were still probably going to be an incomplete pass. Patrick Mahomes' throwing motions and mechanics while rolling out to the right there, it just looked like he was rushed. And you don't often see that from Patrick Mahomes. Great players in big-time moments and big-time games have an opportunity and have the ability to steady their breathing, steady their focus, and elevate their play in those big moments. That's what makes them clutch and great players. Patrick Mahomes always had that ability, of course. In the playoffs, we've seen it throughout his career. This was the first time I've seen in his career, really to where I just thought he got sped up, where I thought he was pitter-patter with his feet due to the pass rush. I thought Patrick Mahomes, like I said, was pressing a bit. I thought that history weighed on him a little bit. And then once, of course, we got out of sync and we started trailing early, I just think it was all over from there. The second interception to Zach Bond, the off-ball linebacker for the Eagles. What a player, by the way. He had a heck of a year. And he's going to get paid this offseason. But that second interception, much of the same. I thought, of course, that it was a bad decision. I felt like he didn't see him. I felt like he was trying to rush and press a throw that wasn't there. Now, once again, the defensive line was on him all game. As I'd mentioned early, 52% pressure rate, only rushing 4, which is unheard of. But that's where it got dicey, and he made the 2 mistakes, one leading directly to a touchdown. So Patrick Mahomes, absolutely abysmal performance. The offense as a whole, like I'm saying, was abysmal as well too. Total, I mean, each team had 13 possessions, which is good, but total yards, Chiefs 275 to the Eagles 345. So they outgained us there. Like I said, a lot of those yards coming in garbage time to Xavier Worthy. A couple of big throws there by Pat to get us back in the game. But didn't really do a whole lot. Rushing, like I said, 11 carries for 49 yards as a team. That's just unacceptable. So those are some of the things, of course, that I think, plagued us, along with that poor offensive line play. Now, 2, Travis Kelce. You got to retire, bro. You got to retire. Listen, I love Travis Kelce. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame tight end. I believe he's the greatest tight end, the GOAT. Travis Kelce, he's a rock star. He clearly has a life after football, already pursuing that. He has a superstar, transcendent, iconic, polarizing, international superstar girlfriend. He's got it all. He's made plenty of money in the NFL, especially over the last 5 or 6 years. He's got 3 Super Bowl rings. And like I said, he's a first ballot Hall of Fame tight end. And if that's the performance you're going to give in the biggest moment, it's time to hang it up, Trav. It just is. It's time to hang it up. And I say that not because I'm trying to be a hater to Travis Kelce. I know what he's done. He's the all-time leader in catches, receptions, yards, touchdown, all of the receiving records in the playoff. He's passed Jerry Rice. He's technically the greatest receiving weapon we've ever seen in the postseason. I was shocked in the divisional round against the Texans when he caught that pass, broke 2 tackles, and rushed for like another 35 yards. When's the last time we saw Travis Kelce get actual substantial yards after the catch? Then he disappeared. AFC Championship game, I think he had, 2 or 3 catches? The Bills did a good job on him, but 2 or 3 catches there. And then obviously the Super Bowl, Travis Kelce, 4 catches, 39 yards. On six targets. He was 4 catches on 6 targets for 39 yards. In the biggest game of the season, an opportunity to go back-to-back-to-back, 3-peat Super Bowl champion, something that's never been done. And you go 4 catches for 39 yards. And by the way, all season, you led us in receiving. I believe it was 97 receptions for 937 yards. But we all knew that you aren't what you used to be, Trav. And so I love you. I love Travis Kelce. I love everything he brings from a leadership standpoint, experience. He's fun. He's exciting. He's handsome. He's charismatic. He's all of these things. And he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But what he isn't anymore is an effective tight end in the biggest moments when Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs need him. And for that reason, if you're already contemplating retirement, if you're going back and forth. By the way, a report just came out a couple of days ago by Bleacher Report saying that we won't have a decision on his retirement before the combine, before the draft, any of that. You're contemplating that far into the offseason, man? Time to hang it up, Trav. Now, maybe that's unpopular. Obviously, he's beloved in Kansas City. And do I think he can still add value over the course of a season? Absolutely. But when you're looking at this transitional period from really the first half of Mahomes' career to that second half, this is where we have to evolve. We have to evolve offensively from a scheme standpoint. We have to start making a transition from Travis Kelce, him being our main third down threat. And this is that transitional period. I don't think the Chiefs' window's closed. I think we all know that. I think if you ask anybody and say, is Patrick Mahomes going to win and Andy Reid going to win one Super Bowl over the next decade at least, I think you'd be stupid to say they're not going to. But we have to start thinking about life after Kelce. We have to think that his retirement is very, very real. Now, flipping to the other side of the ball, I thought the Chiefs defense did a heck of a job on Saquon Barkley. We all knew that was what we were needing to stop coming into this game. Overall, and I've got to check the stats here, but, overall, the Chiefs did a pretty good job there. I thought they sold out on the run. They kept Saquon limited on first and second downs to really keep the Eagles from having that tush push or the brotherly shove opportunity. And for that, I think we played, really, really down. Technically on third downs, we played well too. We held Philadelphia 3 for 12 on third downs. We were 3 for 11 ourselves, but we had held Philly 3 for 12 on third downs. And like I said, largely that was because we were able to, of course, limit Saquon Barkley and different stuff like that. I think Saquon, I forget what he had here. Excuse me. I'm trying to look it up. But yeah, overall, I think if you watch the game, clearly the Chiefs really limited Saquon Barkley there. On the back end, though, and credit, this is where hats off to Jalen Hurts. Look, I've been a big critic of Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is in that Jared Goff, Brock Purdy conversation. I think you got Patrick Mahomes that, of course, my quarterback tiers, essentially. I think Patrick Mahomes is in a stratosphere by himself, of course. And then you got those big three, right? You go Joe Burrow, you go Lamar Jackson, you go Josh Allen. And then that tier right below that, I think you're looking at the Jared Goffs, the Matt Staffords, the Jalen Hurts, the Brock. I wouldn't even put Brock Purdy there, but that's another discussion. Tune in to our podcast where my co-host and I go at it about Jared Goff and Brock Purdy. But Jalen Hurts is that notch below, and I've been a big critic of him. But hats off to him. The Chiefs clearly came out with a calculated game plan to say, okay, we're going to limit Saquon Barkley. All Jalen Hurts does is go 17 for 22 for 221 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Interception, bad throw by him. Brian Cook, I believe, is the one who picked it off. But outside of that little blemish, when the Chiefs stopped Saquon, Jalen Hurts made us pay with his own legs, and he made us pay with his arm. And kudos and hats off to him. I can't sit here and argue that. And going back to, 2 Super Bowls ago, 2 years ago, when we played the Eagles the first time, Jalen Hurts had another incredible performance, had another 4 touchdowns, I believe 3 rushing and 1 passing in that Super Bowl. Wildly outplayed Mahomes. The Chiefs got the win, of course, but wildly outplayed Mahomes over the entirety of the game. Had that one blemish, the scoop and score, the fumble, scoop and score by Nick Bolton in that game. But Jalen Hurts, for the most part, over the 2 big-time appearances that he's played Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, he's gotten the better of him. And you have to give credit to that. And Jalen Hurts, for those reasons, has moved up in my book. I think he is now on the same plateau, argue with me if you want to, as the Lamars, the Josh Allen, and the Joe Burrow, and you put in Jalen Hurts there 4th. Look, would I take any one of those 3 quarterbacks over Jalen Hurts? I used to say yeah, but I don't know. Who are the 2 quarterbacks, now 3, that have beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs? Well, that would be Tom Brady twice, 2018 AFC Championship game, Super Bowl 55, of course, in Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you have Joe Burrow in an overtime in an AFC Championship game in Arrowhead. Those were the two previous quarterbacks to ever beat Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs over this last 7-year run. And now you add a third, and that would be Jalen Hurts. And he's outplayed Mahomes twice. And the number one television show in the world, in the country, Jalen Hurts has outperformed Patrick Mahomes both of those times. Take it for what you will. The other part about the Chiefs defense, like I said, the back end, Jalen Hurts, it's tough. He was tough throwing the ball against us. Trent McDuffie, what are you doing? And everybody's going to point to this podcast and say, yeah, but Eric, in the comments, but he only gave up 3 catches to A.J. Brown for 39 yards. Yeah, but did you see the 3 catches? He got bodied. And for a 2-time first-team All-Pro cornerback, you expect, who's going to get paid, might I add, handsomely this offseason, he got bodied. He got little broed. I thought Trent McDuffie played abysmally. It's like he wasn't up for the matchup. I don't know what was going on there. We lost L'Jarius Sneed. We can't cover anybody. As a Chiefs fan, I was excited for Trent McDuffie stepping into the number 1 role. And for the large majority of the season, he did admirably. Hence the second nod to the All-Pro team. However, in the Super Bowl, once again, in the biggest moment, he wilted. He faltered. He shied away from a tremendous matchup. We were all looking, my co-host and I, we actually previewed that matchup with A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown, for the large majority of the game, just flat out took it to Trent McDuffie. And the one time that probably should have been a no call, I like the Chiefs got the offensive pass interference call, but it could have been a no call. He dominated it on that route, too. That would have been 4 catches for 50 yards, 45 yards, whatever, add the yardage total. And he got little broed on that one, too. So Trent McDuffie, that was disheartening. I think I am going to start calling Chris Jones no-show Chris Jones. You got the bag, bro. It's the same sad story. You got the bag. You sat in a suite between your agents. You watched the Kansas City Chiefs lose by 1 to the Detroit Lions of the first game of the season 2 years ago. You get paid, you come back, you win a Super Bowl, you're going for the three-peat, and Chris Jones, you were a no-show. You were a no-show for the large majority of the playoffs. If you look throughout history, it doesn't matter the sport, your stars have to make plays when the lights are the brightest. Chris Jones did last year against the 49ers. We all remember the 3rd and goal. Brock Purdy drops back. Chris Jones beats their backup right guard. Forces the incompletion. 49ers settle for a field goal. Chiefs go down, score. We win the ball game. He didn't show up this Super Bowl at all. Travis Kelce didn't show up. Patrick Mahomes didn't show up. Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, they didn't show up. Do the Bulls still win those championships if Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman don't rise to the lights? No, they don't. Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, nowhere to be found. And now, look, okay, I'm being harsh, and this is where my frustration is coming out. But it is what it is. You got to call a spade a spade. And when it comes to the overall performance of the Chiefs, we just looked underprepared. We looked We looked overwhelmed. And we look like we didn't evolve in the 2 weeks we had off, or the 2 weeks of prep we had before the Super Bowl. Low energy. It is what it is. Now, bright spots. As I'd mentioned a little bit earlier, I don't think that the Chiefs' window is over or closed, of course. I don't think you have a Tom Brady and Patriot situation to where the Chiefs go a full decade without winning a Super Bowl. I think any even casual football fan would predict that Mahomes and Reed get at least 1, maybe 2 over the next decade. Way outpacing Brady at that point, I might add. However, we have some bright spots. Xavier Worthy, I think, is going to be a monster. Boy, you get Rashee Rice back this next year. Suspension looming with some legal trouble in Dallas a couple of years ago. We'll see what happens with all that. He's also recovering from a Week 4 friendly fire knee injury he suffered this year. I think he'll be back and ready to go before training camp. No reporting on that yet, by the way, but that's just my kind of gut feeling here. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy. I think you probably bring back Hollywood Brown on a 1-year prove-it deal again. Clearly, he missed almost the entire season with that sternoclavicular, however you pronounce that, injury. I think you can bring him back cheap on a 1-year prove-it deal. DeAndre Hopkins is still going to be out there, veteran. I don't believe he's retiring. And obviously, if Kelsey wants to come back, you get what you can with him. But if you're telling me that the Chiefs wide receiver trio is Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Rashee Rice, and a veteran Kelsey, or even a veteran Noah Gray, I'm comfortable with that. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the offseason stuff on this episode of the Heartland Huddle. Just because my co-host and I will be previewing all offseason. We'll recap the combine and the draft, and we'll have a bunch of great content for you guys this summer. But overall, right, the feeling in Kansas City is that, one, we've had unprecedented success. So how mad can you really be? The other part of that is that window is not over, not even close. Anytime you have Patrick Mahomes on a very team-friendly contract and Andy Reid still dialing it up, there's a lot of bright spots in Kansas City. So with that, that kind of caps my reaction video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Heartland Huddle, Chiefs, Lions, and NFL Talk. You can catch us every week on our YouTube channel, Heartland Football, NFL Debates and Insights. You can also search us at Heartland NFL Talk. Subscribe, truly. Please hit that subscribe button and the little bell notification button, of course, to get notified every time we come out with a new episode. We're consistent, we're objective, and we really have fun with this. We have some fun stuff coming up this summer. We've got a pop-up series coming up this summer where we kind of debate some people out in the public. We've got an NFL Legends series with some great guests that are going to be coming on, former players, things like that. So stay tuned, hit that subscribe button to catch it all. So with that, once again, this has been another episode of the Heartland Huddle, Chiefs, Lions, and NFL Talk. I'm Eric. Tune in, subscribe. Let's go.